Well, I might have made a huge mistake. Here we go. So today, this thing needs to get looked at. If you watched the last video, we went ahead and pulled the tub off. And on today's video, I'm going to get this thing rolled out, get it pressure washed, get it frame sanded, get it all cleaned up, see if there's any damage on the frame. I'll show you what it's looking like, and we'll talk about next steps for what I plan to do while I have the tub off of this frame. So here we go. Okay, the frame is now cleaned, it's put back in place. Let's go ahead and look it over and see if there's any major rust, anything that I might have missed before I pulled the tub, but I'm really hopeful after pressure washing it and sanding it just on the quick look that everything really looks pretty good. But I'll show you a close-up of what the frame looks like now that I've got it cleaned up. So we can see here, overall, it looks pretty good now that I've got it sanded down and cleaned up. Really no major rust anywhere, no big cracks. Looks like it was mostly all just surface rust sitting in here. Whoop. Got the jack on the floor still, you can see, and some buckets. Just ignore all the messy nastiness. And then you can see I've kind of already marked up where I'm gonna have to move the shackle boxes, getting that working. But overall, I mean, it's just a little bit of surface rust. It's nothing major. You know, the inside of it might look kind of rough to some of you guys, but overall, I think it's gonna be pretty good. Nothing looks like there's any true rot in the frame at all. I mean, I would expect some maybe in some of these places, but overall it's just a little bit of surface. And so I'll do a little bit more cleaning, and then I've got some frame paint that I'm going to add to it. But overall, there you go, a little inside shot of the frame rail. You can see, I mean, it looks pretty solid. No big cracks. I haven't found any cracks. I went through all of it with a fine-tooth comb, and it's looking pretty smooth overall. Okay, so as you can see, the frame looks pretty good overall. Just a rundown of the future projects and videos that I'm hoping to get out with this thing. Starting in the back, I have to fab up a gas tank. Right now, I'm just gonna do a cardboard aided design, you know, build it all out of cardboard, make sure it all fits, looks right. I'll actually install it and build it after I get the tub back on to make sure it clears the body and all the things like that. But I need to go ahead and build something out to represent where it's at, because I need to run fuel lines. I wanna make sure that the stock Cherokee fuel pump is going to work with the gas tank that I build, that I get the dimensions all right. Then also while I'm in the back, if you saw in the last video, I built the shackle boxes. I got those all done up. We installed them down in a field, and our measurements weren't quite right. As you can expect, stuff in a field is not always the easiest route to go. And so really, I'm gonna get the shackle boxes moved, and that's what I'm gonna focus on in today's video. So if you jump ahead a little bit, I'll go ahead and start that process. But additional things, while I have this apart, I'm gonna run the rear brake lines. I'm going to run the fuel lines from the back to the front, get those all installed. I might do some wiring. I'm going to pull the transfer case, install a slip yoke eliminator. I need to run exhaust. Those are really the big pieces that I need to focus on. I also know that some of you have been asking about rock rails and rock sliders and what I'm going to do with that and how to design those. So I'll do a full dedicated video on those, on what I'm going to do on Krusty, and then what I've done on my yellow Jeepster as well. The pros and cons of both designs. If you're looking to design some yourself, get some opinions on it. So be looking for that video. It's going to come up here pretty soon as well. But overall, those will be the main things that I want to try to get done. And then I'm going to pull the drivetrain completely out, get everything done, finish weld the links for the front suspension, and then I'm going to paint the whole thing with some Rust-Oleum frame rust treatment paint, so that way it'll encapsulate and convert the rust, all that good stuff, make it look really nice. And then once all this is done, I'll pull the tub in, get it finished up, get it all put back together, and on the way. Yeah, I'm sure that will go that easy, you know, all the things. So I'm imagining in my head that it's going to go that quick, but as we all know, there's a lot of minor details that I'm sure I'm missing, and I'll hopefully capture as many of those as I can. If you have any thoughts on maybe what you would like to see out of this process with the tub off, let me know, and what you would really like me to focus on and highlight. So let's go ahead and get started on the rear axle and moving those shackle boxes. Okay, so now I've got the frame supported in the back and the front. I left that tire on the ground for now. What I'm gonna do is clean up the frame right in here so I can get some good welds in. I'm gonna go ahead and remove these shackle boxes, push it back and up, and that should give me the proper distance to use this front. Look at me. I get on in front of the camera and I just forget. The front hole here, mounting hole. Is that right?
You sure about that? You sure about that?
Ah, whatever. Anyway, you guys know what I'm saying. I'm gonna push this thing back so then I can use the front hole here or have some adjustability to go back a few more. So what I did is each of these are an inch apart. So I'm thinking 2 inches back, 2.5 inches back. I should hopefully be able to use this front one. If not, I'll have 2 more that I can go further back, or if in the future, for whatever reason, I decided to use a longer spring, hopefully these further back ones would allow me to use a longer leaf spring from a different vehicle. So let's go ahead and get this unbolted, get the frame cleaned up, and get everything on its way. Also got to make sure I film all this just in case, you know, something really cool happens, like it just collapses into the abyss, or, you know, I don't get it supported properly, you know, those usual. All right, very nice. So now this is off. And as I mentioned, that shackle box needs to go about right to this line. So hopefully I can get all this done. I don't know if you guys can even see my head, but as you can see, this is where my original marks were. I went ahead and drilled those holes out in the field because I didn't have a welder or anything. So now I've got the welder, so I'm gonna go ahead and unbolt this, get it moved back, get the shackle box level with the frame, and then go from there. So fingers crossed, it goes as easy as I'm imagining. Okay, so now I've got the shackle box removed. I've got the frame pretty well cleaned up. I'm gonna go ahead and kind of just sit this, see what it might look like where I want it. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead and make the shackle box level with the top of the frame. Then I'll probably bring some plate in and gusset it down from the top corner, because like I said, I want to do my best to try to drop the lift just a little bit. So to do that, I'm just going to bring the shackle boxes up. All right, let me go ahead and get this tacked into place, and I'll show you what it looks like once I have it mocked up. Here we go. So I've got things mocked up. I marked some lines, got things kind of in place. Now, there's a bunch of formulas, things online that you can say, oh, do this and this and this and get proper whatever. What I've done in the past, and it seemed to work just fine on the yellow one, is basically I just put this at completely relaxed. I put this at 90 degrees, and then I line up where I want it, and I just burn it in, and it seems to work fine, because once it compresses, that shackle is going to push back. And then, like I mentioned, I do have a little bit of play, you know, either way. So I have about 3 inches depending on where I set this. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and put this at 90 on the back one, and then if I want a little bit more shackle angle, I'll be able to push it up, you know, an inch at a time. So that's what my plan is, and I'm really hoping it works, because I'm burning it in, and that's it. You know, in 5 videos from now, 10 videos from now, when I have everything back together and you see me really angry because I've got to cut all this crap off and redo it, well, you'll know why. So like I said, what I'm going to do is go ahead and get this really close to where that's going to sit at that 90, which is about right there. So that's 2.5 inches to this lip from the frame rail. Anyway, it'll be different if you do it yourself, but I'm going to get this out of the way, and we'll see what we can do. Granted, I don't know if those holes are perfectly level either, but I at least want to try to make some things square as much as I can on here when I'm going to burn it in. So I'll go ahead and get that set at a 90, which is about right there, and we'll get it burnt in. Whew. It's always easier if you got another set of hands, but you know, I guess you want to get stuff done, sometimes you just got to do it on your own. That's sitting at 90. Get that pushed up as close as I can, clamp down, tack all in. All right, well, now I got this burned into place. Hopefully that's where it wants to live, because I sent it. It's done. It's there. It's welded in pretty good. So I'm just not cutting it out. I'll figure it out. I'll modify something. I'll choose different leaf springs. I don't care what I got to do, but I am not getting rid of this now. And you might be asking yourself, well, wouldn't it be better to do this after everything was done, you had to wait on it or have done it before. Well, yeah, probably, maybe. But also, this is just so much simpler. I have so much easier access to this entire thing, to the top, to all of it, just getting it all burned in. So I just said, let's see what happens. And so got this side done. I'm gonna go ahead and get the other side done. I'll show you some close-ups of the final product with it all back on its weight here in a little bit.
Much later.
Ooh. Okay, I don't even know if this is gonna look good or what you can see or not see, but I went ahead and hit it with a little bit of paint to keep it from rusting up. Again, I moved it back this is about 2 inches further back than it was at the center hole. So I think that's gonna be just about right. Should be kind of the sweet spot. It looks like on the before, I moved it with it all unloaded like this. The shackle angle is at about 45 degrees. I'm pushing it here, it's now at 65, so it pushed it back about 20 degrees. And previously, when I did have the tub and all the weight and all the body on it, it was sitting at about 30 degrees compressed. So that means at this center spot, I should be sitting right at about that 50, 55 degrees with weight on it, which to me, I think seems like a pretty good sweet spot. I don't know if you guys have opinions on what you run as far as shackle angles or things like that, you know, I'd love to hear, because for me, it's just trial and error, and I mean, just run what you brung, I guess. So, but that's where I'm at. And then, you know, if I push it back, it's looking like every inch is giving me about 10 degrees. So that'll put me, you know, right in that 60, 70 degree range under compression. So I think I'll be pretty good. It's welded in, everything's good to go. So I hope you enjoyed seeing this piece of it, and I'll show you what the gas tank's gonna look like mocked up coming up. So here you go. I am not super great at remembering what I said last, so hopefully this transition works or doesn't, I don't know. But I have all of the rear shackle hangers welded in. Both of them are welded up, they're good to go. I am pretty much done with the back, at least for now, until the tub goes back on. Really the only thing left to do once the tub's on, everything's set, is make sure that I have the shackles in the proper hole to give me the shackle angle I want. Then I need to mount the lower shock mounts on the axle side and then set the pinion angle, but I need to go ahead and install the slip yoke eliminator, do some other stuff before I finish welding the perches in, getting the shocks where they are, all of that good stuff, determine amount of travel. So a lot left just for that, but that'll be once everything's put back together, that'll be some of the last things I do. And then I don't know if I mentioned the outboarding front mounts for the leaf springs or not, but if I didn't, I am now. So I'll show you what that looks like, but I will highly recommend anyone who has the old Jeep Commando or a Jeepster Commando, these outboarded leaf spring hangers are notorious for ripping off the frame. Actually, every single Jeepster I've owned has had this happen, and that's even on stock small 31-inch tires. So if you're looking to make them a little bit stronger, I definitely recommend gusseting them, welding them up, you know, all of those good things. And so I'll show you what that looks like. I've already done it. I didn't film any of that. Basically just cut out a cardboard template, weld it into place, and box it in really good. That seems to have done the trick on my yellow Jeep. Once I did that, I haven't had any more issues with the shackle, with the outboarding mounts. Man, look at me go. With the outboarding mounts, I haven't had any issues on the yellow one after I box them in. So I would definitely recommend that you do that, or at least maybe go back over and re-weld them in. Some of the stock welding can be pretty bad, but I'll show you what that looks like. And then I can't remember if I was going to talk on the gas tank in this one or not, but I did also go ahead and already make a cardboard gas tank so I can make sure that the fuel tank's right. I went ahead and ran a hard line from the back all the way to the front. So I attached AN fittings to both of those ends. So I'll run a soft line from the pump to that hard line in the back, and then a soft line from the motor down to the hard line as well in the front. And that should be pretty nice. Again, I want everything to be field serviceable, so I'll run the same PTFE AN lines on the front and the back with the same fitting. So that way, if something is to burst or break, I can just go ahead and replace those lines out on the trail. So let me show you the close-ups of the gussets on the outboard of the front. I'll show you what the gas tank looks like mocked up, and there you go. There it is. Like I said, nothing real fancy, real complicated. Usually this piece that's out here is just empty, so this piece of steel here is what I added. You can see the fresh welds. Went ahead and made the outer edge smooth just to make it look nice, but really this makes a huge difference in the strength of these outboarded leaf spring mounts, and so highly recommend that you do that if you do have an old Jeepster, just to give it some extra strength. there you go. That's what it looks like. Like I said, didn't film any of it, but you can just kind of see overall what it looks like there finished up. Okay, so this is what I've decided to do for a gas tank. If you guys have any experience or knowledge building these, I would love some tips, what you guys are gonna do. This will be my first time to actually go ahead and build one of these gas tanks, but these are the stock. If you've seen the Aero tanks, they make a tank for the Jeepsters that work pretty well. My brother has one in his, my dad has one in his as well. They're pretty heavy duty. They do hang down a little bit lower than I would like, but I'm hoping I can tuck it up a little bit higher. And I'm gonna have to make some modifications. So you can see here, this is what the stock Cherokee pump, it sits up with the fuel regulator. It sits up about 2 inches higher than the actual flange mount. And so I'm gonna have to recess that down and make it level with the top here. But I think overall it's gonna work really well. I bought a Moto-built fuel cell clamp. So it comes with all the pieces to mount this down into it. And so I'm just gonna use that, and hopefully that'll work perfectly for this setup. Big reason I'm doing this is I wanna make sure everything on this Jeep is really serviceable. I wanna be able to fix anything anywhere I'm at. So I can just walk into the parts store and say, hey, I've got a 2000 Jeep Cherokee, I need a fuel pump, and they'll hook me up. And so that's really the idea here of using this versus a different setup, a different internal pump. The other thing is these pumps were a lot cheaper, so it'll add some work building the tank, but I'll be able to get kind of exactly what I want. You can see I ran the hard line back to here, and so I'll run a soft line over, and then that'll clip in to this part here on the fuel pump. I have the stock wiring loom from the Cherokee, so this is going to sit nice and cleanly as well. Have a stock plug in the end. Hopefully that'll run all of my gauges correctly as well, and so hopefully just make a lot of things a lot easier. And you can see this is just kind of the cardboard template that I made for the gas tank to show me some dimensions, see if I like how low it's going to hang. I'm going to try to make it flush with the back of this, so the floorboard should sit just right above it, and then it'll clear this no problem. I might make it a little bit bigger to the front just to add some capacity, but right now it should be somewhere probably in the 18-gallon range. I would think maybe the 20, I think stock it's 22 gallons, but since I have to make this cut down here, I'll probably lose a little bit. But overall, I'm really excited for the way this is gonna look. Like I said, I won't be building this tank until everything's back in place, the tub's back on it, all of that. So like, this is always real awkward trying to get on the front of the camera and figure out what y'all want to listen to. But hopefully this helps give you some ideas, or like I said, if you've built a tank before, maybe shoot some ideas my way on things to do, not to do, to avoid. But overall, I think this is going to work really well. Let me show you some close-ups. So here's the shot between the fuel pump and that soft line. So you'll see I'll run an AN flexible hose from the stock pump all the way over to that line there. And then let's pan over. I'll show you how I routed the full hard line. You can see it's just there. I went ahead and flared the AN line to the end of it, secured it next to the brake line, running it up the length of the frame. The body's going to come right here and come up, and so this will hopefully kind of sit and secure down a little bit lower there. Then we're going to come up. I'm going to run it under the fuel mount there and pop up right there, and then that'll be the other AN line coming up to the fuel rail there. So you can see I'll get an AN adapter that'll fit to this fitting here, run a soft line all the way down to there, have some flexibility between the two, and it should be pretty good. So kind of give you another pan there of all the line routed all the way to the back. So there you go. So today I went ahead, the rear axle is mounted in, the shackle hangers are welded up, everything's in place. I showed you what the gas tank looks like. I have that mocked. I have the hard lines run for the fuel, and I went ahead and gusseted the front leaf spring hangers as well, so everything's secure. So that is all good and done. I cleaned up the frame, checked it over, made sure there's no cracks, nothing broken, nothing wrong with it. Really, it's getting on its way. I'm excited. Next video is coming out. I'll put something together for the rock sliders. Like I said, I know some people have been mentioning that, wanting to see what I'm going to do. I have finished them up on Krusty, so I'll show you what that looks like. I'll talk about how I'm doing them on this build versus what I did on the yellow Jeepster, some pros and cons to weigh out when you're designing yours. And until next time, thanks for watching.